Hey y'all, so finally I'm back and ready to cook in the kitchen with you guys one more time. My favorite ultimate meal is basically anything based in Italy. I absolutely love the country and especially love their food. One of my favorite meals to eat is spaghetti, especially with a classic and authentic Italian marinara sauce. So today I'm going to show you how to make a classic Italian marinara sauce based off of the Guarnaschelli recipe. She is my ultimate favorite Iron Chef. I look up to her in so many ways, and so let's get started. So you can edit the recipe to your liking in regards to 2 ingredients, which I'll talk about later in the video. But one of the things that you definitely want to focus on is the timing that you allow your marinara sauce to cook. Alex Guarnaschelli's actual recipe only calls for 45-minute cook time, but I will admit that my favorite marinara sauce in this case actually happens at 8 hours of simmering in a classic pan. If you're interested in a more heat conducting cooking utensil, then let me go ahead and show you one of my favorite key items in my kitchen. So a staple item in my kitchen is this Dutch oven. It was a gift from my dad for my 20th birthday, or actually my 22nd birthday, and I just adore this. It is by the company Le Croissant. Honestly, I don't think I'm saying it right, so I'll definitely put it in the comments below. It is top notch, the best of the best. I forget the amount of quarts that this one is, but it is close to the biggest, if not the biggest one. It is a higher price point compared to the rest of the Dutch ovens, but being someone who loves to cook, I did my research, and this is just an incredible product. So in this case, I would like to show you why it's so great. What makes Dutch ovens unique compared to other products is that it is an all iron cast cooking vessel. And so what is important about that is that you'll never receive a cold spot in your cooking utensil, which means all your food will be uniform. It prevents burns, as well as making sure that it cooks at the same time. I wasn't a firm believer in this until my husband, who really doesn't care much about cooking utensils, cooking vessels, or quality of meats, essentially. He swears that food just tastes different in this. He'll comment on the temperature of food immediately, and he'll also just say that for some reason it has more flavor. So if it's in your budget, definitely invest in an item like this. If not, there's other great Dutch ovens that if you need me to do research, I definitely can do that for you. The other cool thing about this specific product is it comes in many different colors. I envision my future kitchen, my dream kitchen, having many other products because I just love that company in various colors. But it's also really neat because it is completely oven safe. So if you're making a dish that needs to go from oven to stove, you can pop it in the oven. The one caveat is that you need to be careful on the handles because since it's all cast iron, they do get hot, so you do need mittens to remove them. So now that I have my Dutch oven on the stove with 2 tablespoons of olive oil cooking or heating up, I want to talk about the next item on our agenda, and that is to cut an onion. We want a full small yellow onion in our recipe, and if you've seen my previous videos, you know that my husband hates onions, but here's a trick. At the end, or towards the end of the cooking process on the marinara sauce, use an immersion blender or a blender in order to make your sauce a little creamier, and it will help sneak in other vegetables like carrots, which will help your kids eat vegetables too. So let's get started on how to properly cut an onion without making you cry. I swear this is something that I learned at one of the cooking classes that I did about 2 years ago, and since cutting an onion this way, you'll never cry again. So let's get started. You want to make sure to cut from the root, the one with the hair, right? You don't want to cut across, which for some reason we're pretty much accustomed to. You want to cut straight down the root. You will create 2 even halves like this. And now what you want to do is remove the skin on the outside. And go ahead and don't be afraid to also remove the outer layer as well. Okay, so now that you have a clean surface to work on, you want to keep the root intact for the majority of this cutting process. What you'll do is you'll cut off, I call it the tail, I'm pretty sure there's an actual term for it, by just slightly removing the end. What then you'll want to do is make vertical cuts across, making sure not to pass about this level of your onion. If you do, then you'll just be stuck in the same way of cutting an onion. So you want to make even vertical cuts. I'm not going completely down just yet since my other consecutive cuts will actually meet them in the middle. Okay, so now what you want to do, and at first it is much easier to do it like this. With this side of the onion up, so root down, you want to go ahead and make one solid cut across. You want at least 2 slices, but you can squeeze 3 if need be. In my case, 2 is sufficient since I will be using an immersion blender. An actual professional would have not let those slip, but I'm just a at-home chef if you call me that. All right, so now the easiest part and the most amazing part of it is you just want to run your knife like this, and look at that. Now you have perfectly diced onion. Now, for this part where the root is intact still, we are going to remove it. Go ahead and dice this up as well. The key to preventing tears while cutting an onion is making sure that you do not apply too much pressure while cutting the onion and not utilizing such an old onion. These 2 key factors will help you from preventing tears from streaming down your face. So the same thing goes, you want to make sure to keep the root intact, cut off the tail, and make vertical cuts. So now that the oil has completely heated up, I'm going to go ahead and add 1 small yellow onion, which we just saw on how to dice that. Be careful once again because the oil is extremely hot. Now I like to add extra garlic flavor, so I do add 3 teaspoons of garlic. And then add 1 teaspoon of sugar. And this is the one area, or the second area, where you can edit the recipe. This is red crushed pepper flakes. You want to be careful with the amount. I'm going to use about half the amount because the longer it cooks, the spicier it gets. We love spice in our home, so it's something that we definitely add. But if you want to better moderate how spicy it is, omit this until the very end and top. But just know that the flavor of the heat is much stronger as you cook it. And this is 1 teaspoon that I'm using as well. Lastly, for this step, you want to go ahead and season with salt. And now that those ingredients are in, you want to go ahead and stir. Once your onions become translucent in nature and a little bit golden on the garlic, it is time to add the next ingredient. After allowing your onions to become a little bit translucent and your garlic to simmer and become very fragrant, you want to go ahead and add 1.5 carrots shredded. You want to add that to your pot and let that cook for about 2 minutes. At the moment that you add the carrots, you also want to go ahead and add some more salt to season. Okay, so at this point, the sauce has been cooking for about 3 to 3.5 hours. To be quite honest, this is a perfect amount of time in this kind of Dutch oven. It is thoroughly mixed in with all the ingredients, and I just tasted it and it tastes fabulous. I'm now going to add in the next ingredient, which is a 1/2 cup of fresh basil, lightly chopped. Carrots and onion are simmering, and before we proceed to the next step, I kind of wanted to let you know on how this tastes. This is not your Americanized Italian marinara sauce. This is a classic marinara sauce, which after traveling in Italy for about 15 days and eating all the pasta that I possibly could and all the pizza, the classic marinara sauce is a lot less saltier than what we find in America. So if you're accustomed to going to Olive Garden and eating that kind of marinara, please know that this is way less saltier. It's more tomatoey and more speaks to the classic Italian ingredients. So I personally prefer this. Everybody who has tried it and doesn't like onion or doesn't think carrots belong in a marinara sauce, they're amazed by how good this tastes. So Give it a shot, it's absolutely delicious, and if you have little ones, they're never gonna know how many carrots you have added to your marinara sauce. So pre-COVID-19, it was very easy to find the ingredient of whole peeled tomatoes in a can. Because of the pandemic, it's become very hard to find those ingredients. So just know that it's easy to be swapped out for crushed or completely pureed. Just know the texture is pretty much the only difference. In our household, I already use an immersion blender, so it's no big deal that the only thing I could find was crushed tomatoes. So you want to add 28 ounces. Once again, because of the pandemic, we were only able to get 2 15-ounce cans, and so we'll actually be adding 30, but the more the merrier in our household because we love this marinara sauce. So after 2 minutes of cooking the carrots, I'm going to go ahead and add the tomato can. That's 1, 2. So now this is where the magic happens. Go ahead and close your lid and I keep it on a very low heat since I like to cook mine for an extra long amount of time. Periodically check on it about every 20 minutes if possible and stir it. If you see that your sauce is becoming a little too thick to your liking, go ahead and add some water in order to keep it vegetarian approved. If not, just keep it chunky. I prefer my sauce just a little on the chunkier side. And so yeah, let's go ahead and stop there, and I will see you in approximately 2 to 3 hours. I went ahead and added the 1/2 cup of chopped basil. I'm gonna let this simmer for another about 20 to 25 minutes, just enough time for me to make my noodles along with the ground beef that I'll be serving since tonight is spaghetti night. So now that the sauce has been simmering for another 25 minutes with the basil, I'm gonna go ahead and use a KitchenAid immersion blender. Like I said, you don't need an immersion blender, you can use a regular blender, but it does take some careful hands when transitioning it. So you wanna go ahead and place it into your pot, allowing it to almost touch the base, and be careful with. So like I said, our family likes a chunkier sauce, so that's about the level I'm going to take the sauce to. If you like it more blended, you can just go ahead and blend it longer or place it into a blender, and that would definitely achieve the smoother texture. So after simmering for nearly 4 hours from beginning to end, the marinara sauce is finally ready. It's an absolute staple in our home and is such a crowd pleaser. Although it can take long while it simmers, you can find yourself doing other things and keeping busy around the house. But it is just the best sauce that you'll ever try, better than any jar and highly nutritious with all the hidden vegetables inside. Today we are having zucchini spaghetti noodles and topped with ground beef and the homemade marinara sauce. So what's the best part about cooking, y'all? Trying it. Let's go ahead and try. A good forkful. It packs a kick with that red crushed pepper, but it's easily offset by that small added amount of sugar. Go ahead and try the recipe and let me know what you would like to see next. You can use this in any kind of Italian dish, whether it be lasagna, spaghetti, ravioli, and you can easily change it into tomato basil soup. If you're interested in that kind of transition, post down in the comments. Thanks for watching. One of the things that it packs a kick with that red